Hey, y'all. I'm Abby.
And I'm Keith.
Welcome to our 80s Live podcast.
On today's podcast, we have the reigning Prom King, official Ed Rooney of the cruise, and also the unofficial historian and photographer of the ship. So I'd like to welcome our good friend and honestly a friend to all, Chuck Coverly.
Hey, everybody.
Hey!
Hey, Chuck. Good to see you.
So happy to be here. Thanks so much. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Chuck, please tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
So my name is Chuck Coverly. This is going to be my 8th year on the 80s cruise. By trade, I'm an educator, presenter in front of large groups of people. So I feel very comfortable doing that. This, not as much. It's weird looking at a little camera, run a business, making fun things and stuff for 80s fans. And that's about it.
I don't know if you noticed, I'm modeling one of your t-shirts.
I saw that. So I wanted to make one this year that said, "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to kick your camp's ass."
Oh, what camp are you in? Wait a minute. What camp are you in?
So we're in Camp North Star.
Dang it.
So we're not in Camp Lake Minnetonka.
Well, we're in space camp. So we were hoping you would be in ours, but we have not been in the same camp with you. I don't think so.
No.
Dang it.
And they switched it up this year. So that was a little bit weird switching it up for us.
Have you started packing at all?
Oh, no. I still making headbands. I'm making shirts, making all kinds of crazy stuff. And so it's been kind of hectic for the last 6 months. It's been nonstop.
Where can people find your stuff if they're an 80s enthusiast and they want to buy goodies?
Oh, I'm glad that you asked. It's thefoxandpossum.com because we decided to name it after some animals that are always frequenting our backyard.
We will link that below, the Fox and Possum. Yeah, you should check it out. He's got some fun stuff on there.
And once we get past the cruise, I'll be putting up a lot of other things that are not 80s cruise related. They'll be more just general 80s.
Pretty much all 80s.
Yeah, a lot of 80s. Was there a better decade?
No.
No. So, that's a silly question.
Okay, that was a good lead in for our next question then. What sparked your love of the 80s?
It lived right through it. So started 7th grade in 1980 and graduated college at the very end of the 80s. So all those formative years, when you're a teenager, all the stuff that goes along with that, it was our time, So I know, Abby, you're a little bit younger. Keith, how old are you?
51. So I'm a little older than Abby.
Just a tiny little bit. Yeah. But 80s, those were the years that you formed all of your tastes in movies and culture, pop culture. It was a fun time to grow up, not have to worry about, mortgages and insurance and that kind of stuff. We just were living to go outside and play sports, play video games, watch MTV. It was swimming in the pool, listening to the radio.
So you grew up in Philadelphia?
Right outside of Philadelphia in South Jersey, yeah. We say Philadelphia because it's easier. Okay. People can visualize where that is. Yeah. But sometimes you'll get somebody who knows where Cherry Hill is. And, I was talking with So last year on the cruise, talking with Morris Day, like we just got on the ship. He was sitting at that bar that was Reunions. I don't know if you remember that bar. That was where the karaoke was. Wow. And I'm sitting there and I didn't even realize it was him. And we're just sitting there. It's like a sunken bar where the people in there are a little bit lower than the rest of us. Well, growing up, there was a Cherry Hill Mall. There was a dinette, like a diner type thing there that the people were down, sunken in. And when you walked by, they looked like they were little people that were working there because their heads were just above the counter. So we all thought that they were little people working there at the Woolworths, the cafeteria. I mentioned that, we're talking and I said, no, it's just like in Cherry Hill. And he was like, I know where that is. And then I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, this guy looks familiar. Yeah, duh, because it's Morris Day. So I was like, is it okay if I take a selfie with you real quick? And he's like, yeah, quick selfie. I didn't want to draw too much attention.
First, the mirror guy has to come and make sure his hair.
Make sure the hair is perfect.
Take a picture.
That's right. I have a really good picture from the first time he was on the cruise back in 2017 where he's doing that. And you can see his face perfectly in the mirror.
You have amazing pictures. I mean, every time we see Chuck on the cruise, he's always got his camera. Tell us about being the unofficial historian. Like, how did that start? Do you just love photography?
All the way back. I know you wanted to talk about how we found out about the cruise way back when in 2016, almost, what is it, 8 years ago now? So our friend George Rears, he pops up and says, hey, do you guys want to go on this? And he sends me a link for the 80s cruise. So this would have been back in 2015. And I'm looking through and I'm seeing the artist and Huey Lewis in the news was going to be on, and Richard Marx was going to be on, and Kool and the Gang. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. So, we go in, and of course we have no idea what we're getting into. This is the very first one. They haven't even put one on yet. So we go on the ship wearing like normal street clothes, like a bunch of freaks, we're not going in with the t-shirts and all the 80s stuff like we do now. We go in just wearing street clothes. Like I'm not even wearing an 80s t-shirt. I'm just wearing like a long sleeve pullover with or button down
cruise wear,
just cruise wear, just light cruise wear. So we have no idea what we're getting into. And I was just looking at, through some pictures earlier tonight, because I wanted to see how many I took. And this is a small amount. Took under like 3,000 or 4,000. In digital now, it's so easy. It's not like rolls of film. The last 80s cruise before, not LA last year, the one before that, I took about 12,000 pictures.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Just had it constantly going the whole time. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I'm running all over the ship. People think that I'm going underneath somehow and have secret passages to get from one side of the ship to the other and hit all these events. But I try to absorb everything in the whole experience. And it's tough going from one side of the ship to the other without running into 50 people.
The struggle is real, because we're kind of doing the same thing as you, but with video, and we're trying to capture everything. And it is a struggle for sure to make sure you cover your bases. We sometimes have to split up because there's like something cool happening. There's always something cool happening. There's usually more than one cool thing at the same time happening. And so it's hard to capture the magic to really explain to people how truly great this experience is.
So we were talking, we just had a little bit of a cruise planning meeting earlier, and we were talking about it would be so nice to just have about an hour or two in the middle of the day where there's nothing programmed, where we can just relax, talk with people. So I'm not looking at it and go, oh my gosh, I have to be to this Q&A, I have to be to this event, just some downtime. So we went on the 70s rock and romance cruise back in 2019. The difference between the 70s cruise and the 80s cruise, I made a meme that I posted in the group that showed the exact same area of the deck. Now, you've seen the sail away party and what that's like.
Yes.
I took a picture, and it was the year that we got the yellow shirts. So it's a sea of yellow, people partying, and then I showed the same view for the 70s cruise, and they actually had the pools covered and had chairs on there so people could sit.
Oh my goodness.
Whatever show was happening, whatever band was playing. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, there's only 10 years difference between the 70s and 80s. No, people that follow your channel that have never been on the 80s cruise, like, I'm wondering what they think about this. I just say, just go. You got to go to experience and understand what the experience is like. Little did I know, 8 years later, that I would still be taking pictures. It really combines my love of three things. So music, the 80s, and photography. So if you love what you're doing, you're going to enjoy it. Maybe it'll be good. But I'll tell you a quick story about Richard Marx. So we're supposed to be getting our picture taken at that big giant radio. The big radio that they have, the big boom box. So we're supposed to get our pictures taken, the whole group. So the first year we go, we had a group of 11 people that are all friends that we all knew each other. So we're supposed to get this picture taken. Well, we're sitting there. We got everybody together. I had to go to the bathroom. So I was like, I'll be right back. So I run to go to the bathroom, and I hear some music playing. And I'm like, I wonder what that is. So I wander in, and I'm like, what's in here? And I look, and I see this guy I thought it was a roadie up on stage, wearing like a V-neck wife beater and sneakers, baseball cap, and shorts. And he's up there, and he's kind of playing the guitar and tuning the guitar. So I'm standing there watching. And then I realize, oh, that's Richard Marx. They were running through their set, like all the changes, who was going to play what parts. I watched the entire rehearsal for like 45 minutes. I'm supposed to be taking pictures at the big radio. There's no cell service on the ship. So they're like, where the hell is Chuck? Where the hell is Chuck?
What's wrong with Chuck?
I'm sitting here, and I got the camera. Now, the guy walking around doing the sound check saw me. Richard, they were on the stage. They saw me. I was in the front row just off to the side. And I guess having a big honking camera, it looked like I was supposed to be there. And
you looked official, right?
That's right. Look like you're official, even if you're not. Right. And so I got some really good pictures, some really good video. I knew what the whole set was going to be. When it's all over, I go back to where everyone's supposed to be. They're not there. We can't find it. I finally find them. They still give me crap about this for just disappearing for 45 minutes. But I'm like, hey, I got to watch the whole rehearsal prior to. So that was a lot of fun. But it was we didn't know what we were getting into that first year. We had no idea. You guys coming in, your first year was what, 2022?
Yeah.
Is that right? You're going to be seniors next year.
Yep.
Yes.
2022, 23, 24, 25. Right.
Yeah. Michael and Betsy invited us. They insisted, really. They were like, you guys, you call yourself an 80s channel, you got to be on the 80s cruise. Like, you're totally missing out.
Yeah, we were having lunch with them one day because we met Michael online through our channel, and his connection with the Outsiders Museum. He's like, "Hey, come down and do a video and filming locations of the Outsiders." So we're like, "Okay." So that was our first time to meet Michael in person. So hit it off from the start. I mean, how can you not hit it off with Michael? And then I think the second day we were with him, we were just eating lunch and he's talking about this 80s cruise. And I'm like, wait, time out. What are you talking about? He goes, you don't know about the 80s cruise? I'm like, I've never even heard of the 80s cruise. So, that's where the spark started. He just talked it up, didn't take much. And we're like, all right, we're in.
It seems like all of the 80s peeps, we all kind of have that camaraderie, and you really feel that on the cruise.
And people don't understand that the 80s cruise has become so much more than the sum of its parts, where I don't even think ECP, that they foresaw how groups of people all over the country would, get together and party. And it's not just like the Northeast cruisers that we have, the Denver cruisers, the Arizona group. There's a whole bunch of people in California, Florida. It's like one big family now that's become, united by this love of the greatest decade ever.
Yeah, I totally agree. People, when they ask me why I love the 80s, I think it's like a renaissance of like pop culture of our lifetime, like the best movies, the best music, the best TV shows, all in the 80s. So on that note, what are some of your favorite 80s movies?
So when I think about my favorite movies, well, I have some of them right here, but Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, by far, probably I've seen that movie more than anything else. Except for maybe Jaws. Jaws might edge it out just by a little bit because I love the movie Jaws, and it might have something to do with me going for a degree in marine biology. Maybe, I don't know. Weird Science, which I have right up over my shoulder here. All the Indiana Jones movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and all of those. I love those. Yeah, what are some of your favorites?
Oh, he's turning the tables on that.
That's right.
Definitely anything John Hughes.
Anything John Hughes, but specifically 16 Candles is my favorite John Hughes. And second is Ferris Bueller. Yeah, Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, well, Ferris Bueller, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, okay. Wait, we need to talk about Ferris Bueller. Okay. The role of Ed Rooney on the cruise.
It was in the intro.
Okay, but we didn't. We need to circle back to that.
Yeah. The whole way that this whole thing started is kind of funny, and it's really indicative of how the 80s cruise functions. Chris Olivas, the DJ Christopher J, was drumming for Berlin at the time, and we're in an elevator, and we were talking about how amazing Berlin was the night before, and this woman who's riding the elevator was just, "Oh, I'll tell them that you guys liked it." We're like, "Well, who are you?" And it was Amanda Olivas. It's Chris's wife.
Sure.
So we get to talking and we're hanging out. And he kept calling me Mr. Rooney. And I'm like, I don't look like Ed Rooney. And I've heard it before, right? I heard it back in the day. And I'm like, I don't look like Ed Rooney. So come back the next year, I decide I'm going to be Ed Rooney. So this is 2018, maybe, I guess, or 2019, because it was the year that we graduated. I didn't grow the mustache out, but I got the fake mustache and I got my hair, ready to roll. And I'm sitting there at the mirror in the cabin. And I hadn't put anything on prior to that because the mustache, I think, came in the mail like the day before we flew out. So I had no chance to put the makeup on. So I sit down, I start putting the makeup on, and I've got the split lip and the black eyes because he just got his ass kicked by Ferris's sister. Right. So I'm putting it all on. As soon as I put the mustache on, I go, oh my God, I am Ed Rooney. Like, I see it now. So I'm all dressed up as Ed Rooney. It was Pop Icon night. Berlin is playing, and Chris is behind the drum kit. Now, they hadn't seen me, dressed up as Rooney. Brian Doe, I'm sure you've met Brian.
Oh yeah.
Says you can have my seat right in the center so he can see you. So I stand up and I'm standing and Chris is up there drumming and he goes, and he like points right at me. And I'm giving him the look like this. And he just starts cracking it up, So later on we see Amanda and she could not look at me. She couldn't come near me. We even have pictures where I'm standing there with some of the other really great made up pop icon artists that were there. We actually used to have a Michael Jackson impersonator and a Madonna impersonator on the ship. And I'm getting my picture taken with them. So that's how the whole thing started. And I wasn't even going to be, I won the contest that night for best costume. And there were great costumes that I was up against, but I wasn't even going to be in the thing. I was just walking around as Ed Rooney. Well, somebody said to me, you need to go get in the contest. And so I walk in the back and I got my stuff on and I'm like, am I supposed to be here? Like I'm walking into like an audition. I don't even know where I'm going. And they just are like,
You win.
You win. So I go out and then they call the finalists. I get up on stage, and as soon as I get up there, everyone's just cheering Rooney. Now, what really helped was the fact that Ferris Bueller was on rotate like all day long on the TVs, because at the cabins, back we have movies just on repeat. And so I was going to retire Rooney. I was like, I'm not going to come back as Rooney anymore. I'm done with Rooney. I was like, no, you can't do that. Maybe I'll do it every other year. Last year, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I get a phone call from Joey Fairchild. He's like, hey, can you be Rooney? Because we have this opening night. We have this whole big thing with Ferris, and he sings, and they want you to come out and chase him.
It was so great.
Yeah, I'll do it.
It was so perfect. We loved
so much
that.
fun.
It was so great.
Bruce. Let's hear it for Chuck Early. We're friends on this cruise.
But it's a lot of fun. Like the ECP, the production crew, Joey's crew, everybody who's involved, all the camp counselors, they just do such an incredible job putting this on for us.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Absolutely. They're the best.
How about music?
Anything that was on the radio, like I would have the radio on the hot hits, whatever, in Philadelphia, it was WCAU FM, Hot Hits 98. And so that was on all the time. It was on clock radio that woke me up in the morning when I got home from school. If I wasn't watching MTV, it was that. So a lot of Billy Joel, Elton John. Who else was big in the 80s? Well, any of the one-hit wonders. I always loved those. Genesis, Phil Collins. My first CD I ever bought in 1987 or 86, somewhere around there, was Invisible Touch. Chicago.
So yeah.
Love Chicago. So Prince, which we're coming up on the 40th anniversary of Purple Rain. I can't believe that.
Oh my gosh.
Like, that blows me away.
Yes. I was a huge fan of Prince too. He's our one that
He's the one that got away.
That we never got to see in concert.
He was playing in Philadelphia 2 nights, 2 back-to-back nights. And my cousin got tickets to go see. She was so excited. And she, goes there for the second night, and she goes in and she had tickets for the first night.
Oh no.
Wasn't able to get in. Yeah.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
I can laugh now because it's funny. But
no,
it wasn't
terrible.
so funny.
Well, it's not funny then, though. So,
my goodness.
So considering you lived close to Philly, I'm assuming that you had the opportunity to go see some good concerts in the 80s. Any concert stand out as one that just like was really memorable?
They always, every 4th of July, they have a big concert on Benjamin Franklin Parkway right in front of the Art Museum in Philadelphia. And it's a free concert. And seeing Chicago there was in 1986, I guess it was, sometime around there, was one of the standouts for me. But yeah, I saw not that many in the 80s. I saw Kiss. That was actually one of my first concerts, but that was late 70s. The Beach Boys saw there. They played in Philly every year for the 4th of July. They were always there. The one that got away was Live Aid. And if there's one thing I could go back in time and change, it would be to go and, write a note to myself, buy Apple stock. I would do that. But besides that, while I'm back there writing that down and all the stock tips that, what I should buy, I would go to Live Aid, because to have something that literally from right where I am right now is about 20 minutes away, and to not have been there is like, and I have friends that went and they were like, oh my gosh, it was incredible, it was amazing. And I'm like,
I felt so lucky that we got to see and meet Midge this last 80s cruise, like such a legend, and that was a big deal. He was a big part of the 80s because
and so unassuming. Like, you would not know just seeing this guy in line at the buffet that he was who he was.
I know. We met him and we gave him one of the little Pac-Man charms that we had made out of clay, him and his wife. And he was like, oh, it's a little Pac-Man. That's so cute. How clever. I loved him.
He was so nice.
I was like, I can't believe we just gave him that. I hope he liked
it. At trivia, I'm sitting there taking pictures during trivia, and Steve and Brad are interviewing him, and he's sitting on a stool, and I'm literally sitting like almost against the school on the floor, feeling like a little kid, with this legend sitting right next to me. And
he's
such an amazing, he was so nice with everybody afterwards as well. He hung out with everybody who went there for trivia.
Because where we met him, he stayed till the very end and met every person that stayed around and hung around that wanted to meet him. He stayed for the whole thing.
I mean, most of the people on the 80s cruise, the artists, are very gracious with their time and stuff. But yeah, he was a standout for being just very gracious, for being such a legend. Do you have a favorite artist that you've seen on the 80s cruise?
Berlin, I could go see them all the time, because now they become friends, where we recognize each other, we see each other, we interact on Facebook. It's a different experience the 80s cruise. It's hard to explain to people that haven't been there what it's like. But standout moments, probably. So it's neon night. We're all dressed up in crazy neon clothes, and I have these neon wigs, and it's Billy Ocean that he's playing that night. So and we're in the front row, literally on the, with my hands on the stage, and he's singing suddenly, and he reaches down and he grabs my hand and he grabs Anne-Marie's hand and he's singing to us. And somebody took a picture of it, and I look ridiculous with this big, crazy rainbow wig on my head. But here we are, and he's singing to us. So that was really nice. Kenny Loggins was amazing.
Right.
Huey Lewis again. Richard Marx was very entertaining. So there's been so many over the years. Sheila E., man, blew the place away. She was incredible.
She seems to be a
says that.
crowd favorite because a lot of people mention her.
We need to get her back because
incredible.
3 different people we've asked have said Sheila E. was like standout.
Yeah, that was an amazing show.
Okay.
Well, we were lucky enough to see Berlin on the last year. They've been on the 80s cruise, so we're hoping that they get to come back at some point because they were fantastic. And like you said, I mean, they were very accessible. They were super friendly people, friends with a lot of people, but she puts on a great performance. We took our kids to see Berlin, Howard Jones, and
Culture
Club, and we asked the kids, who's the favorite of those 3, and they're like, hands down, Berlin.
They said Berlin. We didn't influence them. We were just like, watch the whole thing. We're training them up because next year, not this year, but next year, they're coming on the 80s cruise with us. So,
nice.
You got to pass the torch to the next generation. Right. But they said, "Oh, we hope Berlin will be there." I said, "I hope so too."
Yeah. I hope so too. They've always been so much fun and very interactive with everybody, very accessible on the ship. Yeah, a lot of fun.
She was cracking me up on camp day when like one of the things was you to bring down your bra, and she's just like holding like a stack of people's bras. I'm like, all right.
Somebody had to give their dentures.
Yes. And she was like,
and she had a napkin, and she like grabbed it in her hand and had to carry it up there for them to score a point. She was like a real team player.
It's so fun to have them interact with us like that, isn't it? Because where else would that happen? It's like doing Hollywood Squares. So we go in, and I'm dressed as Rooney. We go into the main theater, and they're asking people to come down and be contestants. I'm like, I don't want to do it. They're all like, do it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I just want to enjoy and watch. And Joey says, hey, we have one more square. We need somebody to come up and be one of the, the square. And I was like, me, I want to do it. So he's like, yeah, let's get Rooney. Come on down here, Chuck. So we go in the back, and we're all lined up, and it's, some of the camp counselors. It's me. It's Lita Ford. It's Tony Lewis from the outfield. It's Nina Blackwood. Now, Nina, we met on the 2017 cruise, and we've forged a really strong relationship since then. We've actually gone to visit her in Maine. She lives up in Maine. She took us around to see some of the sites up there and hang out with her. She's incredible. But we're in the back, and I'm all dressed up as Rooney. So I have the thing in my nose, the tissue in my nose with the blood, the fake blood and all that stuff. So I'm in the back, and I line up, and I start talking to her, and she goes, oh my God, that's you. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. She's like, get that thing out of your nose. It's disgusting. And I'm like, it's part of the costume. He just got his ass kicked by, she's like, I don't care. It's disgusting. Take it out. I'm like, I'm not taking it out. It's part of the costume. So we go up and do the Hollywood Squares thing. And that's a blast. Like, that's something that can only happen on the 80s cruise. A lot of fun.
That's why they have the hashtag only on the 80s cruise, because
there's nothing
after the cruise.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah. Posting the pictures. I'm always hashtag only on the 80s cruise, because these experiences you'll only get on the 80s cruise.
Yeah.
Like where else can you're in line getting coffee, and Terry Nunn is right next to you in the morning, and she's getting her coffee too, and you're like, oh, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, so cool.
So you signed up for the 90s cruise as well, and Comic-Con?
And the Comic-Con cruise. It's like, if DCP is putting on a themed cruise, we know it has to be great. So we just decided we would sign up for that. And then just about a month after that, they dropped the 90s cruise, and we're like, we just signed up for the Comic-Con one.
Guess we're going again.
It was Blues Traveler and Lit and all these other bands. And I'm like, okay, we'll go. And so we signed up for that. So next year is going to be, 3 cruises in a month. They're shorter cruises, the Comic-Con cruise and the 90s cruise. They're only 5 days.
Now, you were talking about the difference in the vibe between the 70s and the 80s. So I definitely want to come back and ask you later, after you've gone on all of them, what the vibe is like on those compared to the 80s. I know it'll be different, but it'll be really interesting to see what it's like.
I'm expecting that the 90s cruise will be just as much high energy and programming as the 80s cruise, because ECP just knocks it out of the park. It was a different cruise company. that did the 70s cruise. And like
Oh, okay.
we actually took naps in the afternoon. Like when would you ever have time to take a nap on the 80s cruise? It's like nonstop.
Never.
You wake up in the morning nonstop for 12 hours plus 18 hours, midnight. Then you go and you're dancing because Travis is playing until 3 in the morning
Yeah.
somewhere. And then
And
you
how
just
can you
crawl.
not go to that?
Right?
So is there a specific night of the cruise that you like the best as far as themes?
I love taking the pictures. So
Yeah.
Pop Icon Night is one of my favorites. I think just walking around, and every year they come up with a few different ones. Back to the 80s is the first night, and you just go dressed in 80s clothes. But Pop Icon Night, I think, with the costume contest is definitely my favorite.
I had one photo to share. This was from the toga party, which this was the night when Terry Nunn from Berlin was dancing right beside us. So it was a magical night. Probably one of the first moments you and I had together. That was
Y'all shared a moment with.
I
Do you remember what song was playing?
think it was Jump.
I was gonna ask
Is that why I'm jumping?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's why you're jumping, because y'all were jumping. They were playing Jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember meeting you guys on the floor in Studio B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, the toga night was our favorite. I think it was our favorite night of the 80s cruise. We just, for some reason, that was just such a fun night.
They do a great job at coming up with themes. So I never worry about it. I never worry that they're coming up with something that, is not going to be. So they finally came up with the SciFi Night. Now, one of my favorite shows back in the 80s was V, the original V miniseries, with the visitors. And so I loved that as a kid. So as soon as the 80s cruise, like we thought, I was, that'll be a great costume, with the lizard skin, like under the real skin. And I'll have the contact lens with a thing, and I'll like eat a hamster, like I'll do with the jumpsuit. Every year I've been saying this. And then they finally come out with the SciFi Night. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, yes, V. And now I'm like, I don't want to wear that heavy jumpsuit.
I was thinking that's a lot. And
too much.
Contacts and all. That's a lot. Can you dial it back?
I would still have to wear the jumpsuit. And we
Just
did space camp. We did a space camp out thing. And it was like, oh my God, I'm dying. Like, I had to walk. I had to take the top off and tie it around my waist just to get some air.
Oh, no.
Have you ever done the Star Trek cruise?
No, we've been talking about doing that for the last 5 years. And every year we're like, no, it's bring about time off. And it's always right before the 80s cruise.
Yeah.
Back to back.
So
that would be hard to do.
2 weeks. Yeah.
That's hard.
So, one day we'll be independently wealthy and be able to just cruise the entire, cruise season.
Yeah,
But
that's
until
what we
then,
always
have
say
to-
too.
Yeah,
When we
have to pick and
retire,
choose. Yeah.
Live the dream.
we got to talk about prom, Chuck, because
Yeah.
you are our reigning prom king.
I should put a little pink bing, put a little crown on my head. So I didn't take that and run with it the way that Richie did. Like Richie still walks around with a crown on his head, and he's like, you want to spend a night with the king, and he's like giving out tickets, raffle tickets, and all that
He
stuff.
gave me one the first time I met him.
I made his little hall passes. I made them for him.
Oh,
I'm making them for him again this year.
Very
So I'll
cute.
have some hall passes that you can spend the night with the king. I didn't even know that I was in the running. Now somebody had said that to me, like, we're going to vote for you. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I didn't even think about it. So I'm all the way in the back of the dining room when they're announcing, and I was like, this is a good shot for me to get a picture of the king and queen. So I got my thing ready, and JT is like, and the prom king is, and he says my name, and I'm like, oh shit, that's me. So I had to run around and give my camera to Anne-Marie and run up, and then Val got the queen. It was perfect for the purple prom because she is all things Prince all day long, all purple, everything. So the fact that she won the prom queen that year for the purple prom, it's an honor being chosen for that by peers or other people that go on the 80s cruise.
I think it's just a testament of how likable of a guy you are, and like you're a friend to everyone. And you have to be.
People started calling me the mayor of the 80s cruise.
Yeah.
And I think it might have even been Michael Fellwach, or somebody that
Probably.
said that. And
I love it.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, I am walking around, I'm shaking hands at everybody, trying to say hi and take pictures and smile, and, and then just enjoying people, because it wouldn't be the same without the people. You ask why we went the first year. We heard about it, and we was like, yeah, this is going to be great. What brought us back? They didn't have that big reveal night like they have now, where they announce who's going to be there the next year. They just didn't have that. They had like a banner with, who's coming next year. And they just had it next to the booking office, like where you go to book your cruises. And I saw Colin Hay from Men at Work. And I was like, I said, we're coming back next year. Because we thought it was just a one-off. We had no idea that we'd be going on now, booked for 9 of these things, which would have been 10 if we could have cruised in 2021. But I just, I was like, Colin Hay is going to be there. Like, I'm in. And then once you come back, you meet more people, and your universe of people that just gets larger and larger. Your circle isn't even a circle. It's like a weird amorphous blob of friends that you see, walking through the ship from the time that the pre-party. The hotel, you walk in and there's people in the lobby. They're like, oh my God, everybody's hugging. And, it's a big, huge reunion every year. And that's one thing I think that ECP really didn't expect that would happen with everybody, all the friendships that were made.
I love it. We're happy to be part of that.
You
group.
are now, because you guys are going to be voting for the prom theme next year. You guys get to pick what the prom theme will be. And they had options for, could have been a punk prom this year. I think there was like a decade of decadence again. Yeah. Oh, that was fun. Were you there for the punk prom?
No, we had Decade of Decadence and Purple so far.
I keep forgetting that. Yeah, that's only the last 2 years. That's right.
Yeah.
So it would have been 2020, I guess, was the punk prom. That I'll send you some pictures to post. It was. I am the least punk person ever. I am like totally. So we're doing, what is it, punk versus prep this year? I'm totally going preppy. Like, I'm going to dress the way that I dressed in high school, basically.
Same. Yeah.
There's not like a whole lot different there, with my popped collar and my sweater like tied in and out over my shoulders, and my loafers. So I decided to just go with it that year. And with the makeup, I'll send you some pictures. You'll be like, oh my God, I'm sitting next to Steve. Now I've known Steve at that point for like 4 years, 5 years, whatever it's been. And we're in the front row. It's the Berlin concert. I'm like trying to take pictures like on the down low, and I'm sitting next to him. And as soon as I started talking to him, he goes, oh my God, that's you. Like, I had no idea that was you, because I had like the spiked hair. I had this dark makeup, black lipstick. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was a lot. It was fun just to kind of step out of the norm. But this year I was like, I'm not doing all that. It'll be easier to prep.
Yes, we're doing preppy also. It is easier. I think.
It is easy. Yeah. It's pretty much how I was back in the 80s. So not a stretch.
Same.
Well, Chuck, thanks so much for joining the podcast. It's been great talking to you, and cannot wait to see you in a few short weeks.
Thanks so much, guys. Had a lot of fun. See you very soon. Goodbye.
See you soon.
Bye, Chuck.
Bye.